So, my name is Devin Walls. I'm the executive director here at MJ Freed Performing Arts Theater. MJ Freed Performing Arts Theater is a space, only a few years ago, that was a sneaker store that we had a different vision for. We've been repurposing real estate up and down the block. We have a maker space next door that we have partnered with the PA Humanities and Lori Zier. We opened here. This space that you're in is called abstract space, and we call it that because at any given time it can change into something else. Right now we're holding this event. Yesterday we had a children's event. Tomorrow's paint parties and different things that the community can utilize and transform the room into anything that they would like. On the other side, we have a theater space that seats up to 200 people, which was the main space of the sneaker store, where only a few years ago you can get some nice Adidas, Pumas, and some boots if you wanted to go to work. I just wanted to take the time to stand up front and thank everybody who's been helping us along this journey. We've been working on building this arts community in downtown Chester against all odds. A lot of people say that it couldn't be done, and the people who believed that it could be done told us that it would happen in 20 years. And here we are 3 years later, building a bigger and better Chester, starting here in the downtown. So you're here for another great event. We have so many events that happen here at the theater, and tonight you're here for Policing the Truth. On behalf of myself, MJ Freed Performing Arts Theater, and my daughter Cameron, you want to say anything? That's all you want to say after all of that in the back? I'd like to say thank you, and I want to introduce my partner, Lori Zier from the PA Humanities.
Partner with this guy in MJ Freed on a project called Chester Made. The Pennsylvania Humanities Council, we're a statewide organization. We're a federal state partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities, and that gives us a great national network. All across the nation, folks are having conversations like we are tonight around policing the truth. This initiative, Democracy in the Informed Citizen, is about truth-seeking in our communities. At the Humanities Council, we like to say we put the arts and humanities in action for positive change. And it's in conversations like we're going to have tonight, where we're seeing in communities across Pennsylvania, people seeking the truth, looking for the hidden stories in their communities to talk about their future. So thank you so much for coming out tonight and following us at Chester Made.
So I would like to introduce and bring up Ulysses Slaughter. I call him Ulysses Slaughter. He's another one of our partners here at the theater and with Chester Made and the Pennsylvania Humanities. I'm going to try her one thing. Sure you want to say it? Ulysses Slaughter, ladies and gentlemen.
Everybody, good evening. Good evening. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for being here. We want to get right into what we are doing this evening. I want to read a few things before we get started. Thank you, Lori. Oh, Lori. That's how you go that way, Lori. Well, just seeing things. Policing the Truth is a part of the deformed, Democracy and Informed Citizen series administered by the Federation of State Humanities Councils in partnership with the Pulitzer Prizes and supported by the Pennsylvania Humanities Council. The series seeks to deepen, as Lori said, the public's knowledge and appreciation of the connection between democracy, the humanities, and journalism, and an informed citizenry. Additional support for this series was provided by the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. So we came up with the idea of policing the truth. At first, it sounded really intriguing. We were like, well, what would that mean when we talk about policing the truth? Because then you start asking, well, what is the truth? Who are the police? What's involved with this policing the truth? And in this day and age, we hear terms like fake news, right? Everybody hears the term fake news. We hear that everybody is on social media platforms. Everybody's got some ideas about how things should go. And in some way or another, we're going to have to come to some agreements if we're going to have a particular kind of society, right? And so I started thinking about, okay, what is policing the truth and who would I want and a conversation about policing the truth. So we started kicking around some ideas, and some of the names were offered up to us. And I want to start inviting, I want to get our panelists up here, and then we're going to introduce them one at a time. So if I could get Mr. Bill Marimow, if I could get Sara Lomax Reese up, Brother Shomari Grimes, Mr. Michael Chitwood, and then I saw Zulene Mayfield. There she is. Zulene Mayfield, come on up. If you all could work out this chair thing, I'd be, really appreciative. Where?
All right, you can sit. Eric doesn't want to sit next to me.
You should have worked this out a long time ago.
You should have had a side seat.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Side seats, right.
This is policing the truth.
This is, right. Okay. So how we're going to start this off is we're going to have Mr. Marimow. He is going to start with an opening. He is going to kind of set the stage for us, but I want to give you some background on Mr. Marimow, who is a two-time Pulitzer Prize recipient. He's also Vice President of Strategic Development for the Inquirer, the Philadelphia Inquirer's parent company, Philadelphia Media Network. Born in Philadelphia, he grew up in Havertown and joined the Inquirer in July 1972. As a reporter at the Inquirer, Marimow received the Pulitzer Prize for Public Service in 1978 for stories he wrote with a partner on criminal violence by Philadelphia Police, and again in 1985 for his investigation of the police K-9 unit. His work on the bombing of the Move House on Osage Avenue formed the backbone of the Philadelphia Inquirer's Pulitzer Prize entry in 1986, which was a finalist in the general reporting category. In addition, Marimow received 2 Silver Gavel Awards from the American Bar Association and 2 Robert F. Kennedy Awards. The first for his work as an Inquirer reporter, the second for his work as Vice President of News and National Public Radio. Marimow also served as the editor of the Baltimore Sun and the Vice President of News for National Public Radio. He was editor-in-chief of the Inquirer from 2006 until 2010, and again from May 2012 until spring 2017. He is a 1969 graduate of Trinity, sound like that bird, Trinity College, from which he received an honorary doctorate degree. And he studied First Amendment law at Harvard Law School as a Nieman Fellow in 1982 and 83. His wife, Diane, teaches at the Philadelphia Museum of Art and also produces her own sculpture at the Clay Studio. He has 2 children and a reporter at the Washington Post, and Scott, who is the managing director of a private equity firm. I want to introduce Mr. Bill Marimow.
Thank you, Ulysses. Thank you very much. And thanks all for coming out tonight. I was asked to speak for 10 minutes, but I'm going to cut that back to about 7 or 8, so we have lots of time to discuss all the things that are on your mind, because none of us are really mind readers. But let me begin. And in my opening remarks, I want to provide some perspective for all of you on the state of journalism and freedom of speech around the world, and how it relates to the subject we'll be discussing here tonight, policing the truth. I'm doing this because I believe that all of us should be thankful that the United States has a free press and a First Amendment that guarantees us the right to express our opinions about matters of public importance. That means we can speak our mind whether or not we love our mayor, our governor, our president, or our Upper Darby Chief of Police. We can love them or loathe them, but we're free to discuss it. There's an organization in Washington called Freedom House, which each year evaluates the state of press freedom in all 201 countries in the world, from Sri Lanka to Somalia, from Austria to Australia. The way Freedom House defines freedom of the press is this: that coverage of political news is robust, safety of journalists is guaranteed, government intrusion in media affairs is minimal, and that the media is not subject to onerous legal or business pressures. And here's the key statistic that I'd like all of you to remember. Based on Freedom House's reporting, only 13% of the population in the world has a free press. 13%. Can anyone hazard a guess as to which country has the least press freedom? You're close. Getting close with China.
Somebody might have said it.
North Korea is correct. Now, this one's a tougher question. Can anyone guess which country has the most freedom of press?
United States.
We're 31st.
Denmark.
Germany.
Denmark is close. A little north. Norway. Norway is number 1. The U.S. has a free press, but there are 30 nations around the world where conditions are more conducive to speaking, broadcasting, and printing the truth. Among them are nations like Belgium, Costa Rica, Switzerland, and Denmark. I share this information with all of you because we know that the media in the United States is amazingly diverse. From big national news networks like Fox and CNN, to small papers like the News of Delaware County, the Westchester Daily Local, and the Concord Monitor in New Hampshire, where my daughter was a reporter. Most of the journalists that I've known, and I've known thousands of them, strive for excellence, often under conditions and limitations of deadline duress. So in the time allotted to me tonight, I want to discuss the dangers of fake news, how we can detect it, how we can dissect it, and how we can debunk it. And I have some antidotes to the problem, but I'm going to save them for our discussion, because I think all 5 of us have good ideas about that. So how many people in the audience have heard of the Washington restaurant called Comet Ping Pong on Connecticut Avenue?
Never.
Okay. The Comet Ping Pong case is an egregious and tragic example of what can happen when a person or persons believe fake news. Stories that are, in my opinion, utter, I'll call them poppycock to avoid any profanity. You know what I would have said. The Comet Pizza case involves a restaurant that was widely patronized by customers in a quiet residential neighborhood of Northwest Washington, Connecticut Avenue, and a Salisbury, North Carolina man by the name of Edgar Madison Welch. In the fall of 2016, just before the presidential election, Welch was a 29-year-old husband and father of 2 children. At the time, the internet was flooded with reports, all utter poppycock. The children were being harbored as sex slaves in a ring led by Hillary Clinton. The children, the report said, were being held captive in the basement of Comet Ping Pong on Connecticut Avenue. Welch was one of many people who heard about the Comet Ping Pong allegations on sites like Facebook and Twitter, and on broadcasts aired by Alex Jones, the radio host and far-right conspiracy theorist. It was Jones who urged his audience to investigate the Comet situation firsthand. By the way, Alex Jones is the same person who alleged and broadcast the false story that the massacre of the children in Sandy Hook, Connecticut was a hoax. He's now being sued for libel, and in his depositions he said he had a psychotic episode. That's why he broadcast it. So on December the 4th, 2016, Mr. Welch drove from Salisbury, North Carolina to Washington, D.C. He was armed with an AK-15 rifle and 2 firearms. He arrived at Comet brandishing the AK-15 with a gun clearly visible in a holster, and he began firing. Terrified patrons ran screaming for the restaurant. Welch began looking for the enslaved children. When he found that there was no one there, he left his weapons in Comet Ping Pong, walked outside on Connecticut Avenue, and surrendered to the police. The toll of that tragic afternoon was devastating. A father of 2 ends up in jail for 4 years because he believed the story he'd heard about the sex ring. A quiet neighborhood restaurant and its patrons were traumatized by a shooting in which, amazingly, no one was physically hurt. Another victim was James Alefantis. He was the owner of Comet Pizza, and he described what happened to him and his customers in an op-ed piece in the Washington Post, which I urge all of you to look up on the web. It's really a graphic description of what can happen when fake news is believed. Alefantis himself began receiving death threats even before the shooting spree. The restaurant's page reviews on Yelp and Facebook were deluged with obscenities and inaccurate reviews. And Comet's most loyal employees and customers were being harassed. When it was all over, Alex Jones, the radio show host who trumpeted the lies about Hillary Clinton, issued a tepid apology. He claimed that 2 of his employees had received misinformation, which he believed, and after he discovered it was false, he fired them. As far as I'm concerned, that is utter poppycock. The Comet ping pong story demonstrates how dangerous fake news can be, but it provides a classic example of why our readers always need to be vigilant when we read, listen to, or watch the news. In closing, I'm only going to offer one of my 4 suggestions to give time for our discussion, but what we can do to counteract the poisonous effects of fake news. And number 1 is education. I believe that education has to begin when our children or our grandchildren are in elementary school. Each of us need to make certain that the children take a keen interest in public affairs, that they really understand from us and their teachers the importance of a democracy where the government belongs to the people. They need to understand that in a democracy, those we elect serve the people, not the other way around. I can remember vividly poring over the pages of my weekly reader at Brookline Elementary School on Arlington Road in Havertown back in the fall of 1957 and learning how government worked. I looked this up in Google the other day because I wanted to see if my recollections from 62 years ago were accurate. So I found a publication that arrived in October, my weekly reader, trumpeting the mission of the Soviet Union's Sputnik. And I remember worrying about whether Russia was more advanced than the United States in science and thinking, what are we going to do about it? I think that educators need to use the news in print, online, on radio and TV to help their students think critically about national and world affairs. Skip the other ideas, but my last one is this, and it's definitely not least. Subscribe to your local newspaper, website, join your radio station, like Word, help WHYY. In doing so, you'll be providing the financial support that ultimately will lead to more investments in quality journalism. And if we invest in quality journalism and can add more muscle, that will be one of the prime ingredients in helping our quest to police the truth. So I'll cease and desist, and we can talk about the things that interest you most. And thank you.
All right, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to introduce each of the panelists. I'm going to start with Brother Shomari. Introduce each of the panelists, and I can imagine the face he's making. I'm not going to even look. And I'm going to ask them for brief remarks about what does it mean when you hear the term policing the truth in your particular line of work. Okay? So let me introduce you to Brother Shomari. Eric K. Grimes, Brother Shomari, is an activist, organizer, author, speaker, training professional, and educator focused on developing consciousness-raising and transformative learning experiences for those committed to overcoming oppression, injustice, and racism. Through his community-building efforts, Being Black and Raising Our Villages to Power, he aims to help move information to wisdom to guide coordinated wise actions grounded in principles of Sankofa, and a belief that the Black diaspora must educate, socialize, and teach our own people and control our own narratives if we want true social justice. Thus, nothing about us without us. Brother Shomari.
Okay. Could you repeat your question again? Make sure I speak the truth. Did y'all know that Bush was Alex Jones's?
That is not true.
What's the question again?
In your line, for Brother Shomari, check your mic there, bro.
No, he wants to keep it up.
Okay, keep it up. All right. In the line of work that you've done and in your experience, when you think of policing the truth, what comes to mind for you?
It depends on which line of work I'm doing at the time, and I mean that literally. I mean, I wear a lot of different hats. All of them for me center around the role of Mwalimu, which is like teacher. And so, you know, I'm a teacher. I teach on the college campus. I've taught in high schools, and my role around policing the truth is different for me there than when I'm, say, on the radio. And I'm behind a microphone, and I know that my voice can spur people to action or inaction, right? So I'm very conscientious about, even though she might not believe me, I'm very conscientious about how I manifest my politics vis-a-vis the best interest of the station. When I'm a father, that's a whole other thing. When I'm working behind, I just left prison last night. When I worked with men behind prison walls, especially when you have guards and stuff looking at you, you know, my sense of how I police myself, because they're policing me, it differs. So I think truth is context specific, but it should be on the foundation of transparent principles. And so that's how I see policing the truth. I think that at the end of the day, the moniker for my show is moving information to knowledge, knowledge to understanding, and understanding to wisdom to guide wise action. And I believe that truth is differentiated in each of those spaces. I think that there's a truth you derive or arrive at based on information, which is related to but different than your truth based on knowledge, which is different than but related to a truth you come to because you now understand something, which is can be a whole different truth that you arrive at because of wisdom. They're related, but they're at different phases of your learning curve. And I believe that, you know, how many of you all no longer believe something that you strongly believed 20 years ago? Right? So your truth has changed. So what you hope is that the foundation of your values and principles guide how you come to know. But truth is context specific, which is why I think it's a political thing. Truth is political. It's not an objective reality that exists that we're all trying to find. We all come to our own truth, and that's a contested space. And I think we need to honor the context.
Thank you. I'm going to go over to Sara Lomax Reese. Thank you for being here. Sara Lomax Reese is the president and the CEO of WURD Radio, LLC, Pennsylvania.
I'm Eric's boss.
We kind of got it.
That's the end of the information that you need to know.
I'm kidding. No, please,
Don't bosses have to pay you in order to do it. And that's a slavery, right?
Do you all want me to finish?
Yes, please.
I'm going to finish. All right, here we go. Sara Lomax Reese is the president and CEO of WURD Radio, Pennsylvania's only African-American owned talk radio station. She is credited. She is credited with transforming WURD Radio from a legacy talk radio station to a multimedia communications company, providing cutting-edge, original programming on air, online, and through community events. In 2017, Sara led the expansion of WURD to the FM dial. Now simulcasting. I gotta stop soon. I'm just tripping over my tongue here. Simulcasting on both 900 AM, 96.1 FM. I'm gonna read the rest of this incredible bio later because I want to go ahead and let you talk, Sara.
Sure. So first, let me say, Eric and I are like brother and sister. He's gonna, so don't think that any of this ribbing is like him, like us being at odds with each other. So
She's the older sister.
Anyway, Anyway, and I love hearing Eric speak because he frames things in such a complex but clear kind of way, and it always, in my view, elevates the conversation. So from where I sit as the owner operator of this radio station, the only black-owned talk station in Pennsylvania, one of maybe 3 in the nation, I see this idea of policing the truth as this incredible responsibility and opportunity to give people who often are caricatured, stereotyped, marginalized, given no kind of agency in terms of telling their own stories in their own voice, an opportunity to have this forum. And my goal is to create, to broaden, expand, and grow all of these platforms so that we can speak our own truth in our own voices. Because as Eric said, the truth is relative, it's personal, it's contextual, it's all of those things. But for so many people, we are force-fed what a national narrative is, what a white truth is, and we're supposed to kind of get in where we fit in, and a lot of times that's not our truth. And so I think that it's so important, and I'm a big, big, big advocate around ownership, media ownership. The media is so unbelievably powerful. I started running the station in 2010. My family purchased it in 2003, but I actively did not want to run the station at the beginning for personal reasons, and I felt compelled to get involved eventually. And the reason, and what I inherited was kind of, it was an AM legacy radio station. 900 AM is our dial position. And even though it was considered like a low power AM small station, it was amazing how powerful even that was. And so by building and recognizing that there's an awesome responsibility to projecting truth and accuracy, and because there are so many other platforms now with social media and all these places that can manipulate truth in very seemingly credible ways, it requires, this whole notion of trust and ownership. There's a relationship, I believe, between ownership and trust. And so, when you see the people at, the supermarket who own the radio station, or at the gym, or in the community, there's a different kind of relationship that you have than if it's just some anonymous, corporation that is, feeding you information. So I think that there's so much around this discussion of truth, democracy, media, that needs to be unpacked, because we do have to be informed consumers, and I hope that WURD is playing its part in not just giving people a platform to speak their own truth, but also to have discerning personalities like Brother Shomari, like our other personalities who are providing truth, even if it's from their own perspective, that people can process, digest, learn from, and hopefully be empowered.
Thank you so much. Very good reason. I'm going to ask Ms. Zulene Mayfield to wait to go last, because there's some things I'd like to introduce about you, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Is that okay? All right. I wanted permission.
It's okay.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to ask Superintendent Chitwood, but I want to read your bio first. So this is Superintendent Michael Chitwood. Michael Chitwood joined the Upper Darby Police Department as Superintendent of Police in August 2005. He has more than 50 years of law enforcement experience, including 32 years as the Chief of Police in both urban and suburban departments in his current position. Superintendent Chitwood is responsible for managing a $29 million budget and for overseeing 133 sworn police officers and 24 civilian staff. Collaboration between the police and the community is a hallmark of his policing style. Community initiatives in the Upper Darby Township include the Community Policing Center, a Victim Services Program, the Citizens Police Academy, and the 5th grade mentoring program. In 2013, the Upper Darby Police Department was awarded the International Association of Chiefs of Police Victim Service Award in recognition of the department's Victim Service Program, Breaking the Cycle. Again, I'm going to continue some of this bio as we go down the road, but I'd like to introduce Superintendent Michael Chitwood.
When I look at the topic, policing the truth, I look at it from a cop's perspective. I don't look at it from, so far, the esteemed guests, what they had to say. In fact, I found it kind of interesting to listen to what they had to say. I truly believe that one of the most important functions of policing in America today is getting the truth, finding out what the truth is. And I always talk about an officer goes out on the street and a community member makes a complaint against that officer. It's usually the way they were treated, police brutality, whatever it was, racism. And I always give the complainant an opportunity to come in and sit down with me one-on-one and tell me their story, tell me what happened. And then obviously the police themselves are protected by union contracts, and sometimes I'm even amazed at the protection they have, but I get their side of the story. So now I have two sides of the story. And I always come up with the greatest line in the world that I think it is. Somewhere in the middle is the truth. Somewhere in the middle is the truth. Do we believe the police officer? Do we believe the complainant? And when I look at policing the truth, that's what I do every day, is I have to find out what the causation factor is, what led to this complaint, and what the officer did or didn't do, right or wrong. What the complainant did, right or wrong. And that's a tough job. I mean, I've been a police chief for 34 years in 3 different locations. And it's the same over and over and over again. So my goal or my job is to find out what happened. Now I have internal affairs, I have an investigation, I have reports, I have now with video. I mean, I'm amazed at the numbers of people who have video. It's really, really unbelievable. And so I got to put all that together to find out what truly happened in this particular incident, or what happened to cause a complaint to come forward. And I find that if I'm honest with the complainant and I'm honest with the police officers, I'm going to win. I'm going to win because I got the truth. So again, when I talk about policing the truth, I look at it strictly cops and robbers type thing. And that's how I focus on it. So that's what I saw tonight when I was invited to be a speaker. I said, okay, what's this about?
Thank you, sir. I wanted to say Ms. Zulene Mayfield because she is not a media person in a way. She's not the police in a way, but she's all of those in another way. For decades now, Ms. Zulene Mayfield has policed the truth of what goes on here in the city of Chester around environmental racism. For decades, she has stood in front of trucks. For decades, she has called out trash to steam, and incinerator owners. She has called people to the charge of, we got to stop polluting this city. Ms. Zulene Mayfield, in the last 3 weeks, I believe, has been featured in The Guardian. One was The Guardian, another one was Now This, recently covered Ms. Zulene Mayfield. And again, she's been an advocate of stopping the trash from coming into this city. I'm not going to say much more, but we want to know, Ms. Zulene Mayfield, how do you police the truth? Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Zulene Mayfield.
First, I want to welcome you to my city. Welcome to Chester. I don't care what you heard. It's not true. It's not. When you come to Chester, you will find that this community is a very warm community. It's not unlike a hometown place. Literally, everybody in Chester knows literally everybody in Chester. And if they don't know them, we're like 1 degree of separation. If I don't know you, I'm going to make a phone call and I'm going to get all in your family line and figure out who made a baby here, who was sneaking with that person. That's the network of Chester. I'm born, raised here, educated here. I have a love for this community. Everybody loves home. This is my home. And if you can't defend the home front, I don't know what you need to do with yourself. It is inherent that we all, no matter what it looks like to anybody outside, this is our community. People that I love are in this city. Now let's police the truth a little bit. Some years ago, we were told that a facility was coming here. And it's a trash pristine place. Okay, well, nobody at the time had any idea what the heck that was. So, they got up and they running. Now we understand that it's not a trash to energy, it's not a trash to steam, they burn. Point blank, period. They burn. And everybody in this room knows once you burn, there's always a residue. Currently, we have the largest incinerator in the country in 4.8 miles, directly on top of where people live at.
Come on, Queen, talk about it.
Okay? We should not have to be the trash managers for Costa Rica, Puerto Rico, New York City, the city of allegedly brotherly love. Okay? That's the old history. Now the new history is, there's a new term floating around that we recycle. I absolutely saw a news story yesterday that had me, I had to go outside of my job so I could scream for about a half an hour on ABC News out of the city of Philadelphia. City of brotherly love, sisterly affection, where they are going to 100% recycle their recyclables. And let's police the truth. They currently have a request for proposals out where their intention is to send even more of the recyclables to Covanta, the incinerator here. So tell me why somebody at Chestnut Hill, who assumes that they're doing the right thing, they're being good stewards of the earth, they're teaching their children, no, this goes in the yellow bin, this goes in the blue bin, this goes in the green bin. When they all throw it on the truck and they bring it here to be incinerated and to pollute our children. Okay? In a city with the highest infant mortality rate in the state, where the children are losing days out of school because of asthma attacks. While they're training trash from New York City into this little city. So 33,000 people are supposed to be responsible for 30 million people's trash. But they're telling you that you're recycling. That's going to police the truth. Ocean City. Why do you want to send your trash to Chester? And incidentally, Philadelphia, I don't know if it's in their code, but they've made a moral decision that they will not incinerate within their borders. Why? I spoke to Mayor Kennedy before he was the mayor. He was very sympathetic, very understanding. Now you're the mayor. And you have control over where these contracts are going to go. We don't need it. We, as residents of this city, can say and direct the direction of the way that we want to see our city going. We want to give our children a chance to be able to stay outside and play without having an asthma attack or having bronchial issues or cardiovascular issues and all of the things associated with the pollutants that come out of that stack. But the operators of the stack will tell you it's just steam. It's just steam. Really. When is arsenic just steam? When is particulate matter just steam? If they were so safe, how come they're not everywhere? And I'm being real good because I have to keep looking because I will cuss a whole lot. But this baby is up in here. Oh, thank you, Lord. But the truth is, we as this city, and not only this city, it's Delaware County, have to police the truth of what county council does. Because everybody's got a role in this. Everybody. 28% of the trash that goes into the incinerator comes from Delaware County. 29% of it comes from the city of Philadelphia. The city of Chester contributes 0.1. So who is it benefit? The truth is, they'll tell you, well, the city needs jobs. We need jobs, but we ain't stupid.
Amen.
Okay? We're not stupid. Nobody want no low-paying, no-paying jobs.
Amen.
That's going to hurt our mother. And if it was a jobs issue, we would gladly share our jobs with any other. Rose Valley could have the jobs that Chester takes from that incinerator. Gladly. Radnor can have them, Lower Marion. And the only thing that is not a consolation, but the truth is that, yes, we've been fighting it for years, and we have been successful. Because had we not been involved, there would be 10 of those facilities. We fought 7 of them and defeated them. And we're going to defeat that beast too. Without a doubt. And that's our truth.
Sara Lomax Reese. We're going to hold the questions for a little later. I want to get the, I look at them as like a jazz band. We're going to do some impromptu playing up here in a minute. I want to see how this goes, and if I have to jump in and conduct, I will. But I want to start with Sara. I want to mention a couple of things about Sara. She's a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania and Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism. She has written for the Miami Herald, the Philadelphia Inquirer, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Essence Magazine, and a number of others. Sara, I want to ask you a question about how does money impact your ability to police the truth as someone running a radio station, an owner of a radio station?
So, you know, we live in a capitalistic society, so money is a driver around many, many things. I was talking to my sister yesterday or earlier today about my father's legacy. And my father was this brilliant physician who became an entrepreneur, who had incredible success that allowed him to get the kind of wealth that he was able to acquire WURD and make investments in other businesses. And his real passion was Black economic empowerment and self-determination. And so he invested in a lot of Black-owned businesses. He supported a lot of Black cultural institutions and was really a bit of an economic engine as an individual for Philadelphia's Black community. But the thing that I think, and this is what me and my sister were talking about, was the greatest gift to us as his children is our ability to kind of be independent and speak and operate in a way that we don't have to answer really to anyone except ourselves. And that is like a really unique gift. Now, when you when you layer on operating a business, it's complex because I am constantly walking that balancing act of how do I empower in an authentic way? How do I keep this business alive? How do I create a business model around empowering Black people and providing substantive, authentic information and voice to people who, for many reasons and many years, have been voiceless and have been, ignored. And so it's a very difficult thing. And to do that with integrity and with authenticity without, selling yourself or anyone else out is a juggling act, because you need money to survive. You need corporate support, you need foundation support, we have a membership program, you need individual support. So it is a very difficult line to walk. But going back to my father, he walked that line in a very powerful way, and having some economic independence allows you to stand upright and look people in their eye and say, I will or I will not do, yield, make that compromise, what have you. But there are always compromises. There are always compromises, because at the end of the day, for me, my number one priority is to make sure that this media outlet survives and continues to be a place where Black people can speak and be heard in their own voice. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but it's, my driving, the thing that drives me is, like, how do we, like, I tell my staff all the time, and to be an on-air personality, which I'm not, to be an on-air personality, there's a certain amount of personal risk and ego that you have to expend in order to step in front of that mic every day or every week. And I tell my staff all the time, it is not as much as passionate as you are about an issue. This platform is not about you. This platform is not about your personal acts or issue or anything or passion. It is about empowering our people. It is about how do we use this platform to educate, empower, uplift, and just allow our people to thrive and to be seen in our full humanity. So so that's what drives me, and so I have to make a lot of interesting decisions on a daily basis to keep it alive.
Over here, Bill, when you have in the past had to deal with the same challenges as an editor that Sara has dealt with, the challenges of telling the truth versus struggling with the people who give money, where have you struggled in that fine line of telling the truth? And maybe it's not so fine. Telling the truth and making sure that you're not putting the company in some kind of financial jeopardy.
It's a good question, Ulysses. And I think that at the Inquirer, beginning in 1970, when it was purchased by Knight Ridder, there was an independence. The editor did not report to a publisher in Philadelphia. He reported to the vice president of news in Miami. After the Bulletin closed in 1982, the economic resources of the Inquirer were extraordinary. At the peak, the profits were close to $100 million. There was a staff of 535 full-time journalists, 145 correspondents, of whom Sara at one point was one. Really top-notch journalists. And during that period, if there is something that required attention, the staff could investigate it, regardless of whether it was about a major corporation like Aramark or Comcast, whether it was about the Philadelphia police, corruption in the state legislature, Abscan, a whole gamut, the move bombing. And I think what Mike had to say about examining the truth is something that every good reporter learns. If you don't master both sides of the story, you fail to do your job. Because when you master both sides of the story, which requires time, money, expertise of the journalists and reporters and editors, one of three things happens. Either mastering the other side of the story adds nuance to the story. It's not 0 or 100, it's not black or white, it's gray. The second possibility is if the other side of the story is utter poppycock, it adds muscle to your central thesis. So when a dog attacks a human, when two dogs attack a human being, and the person is charged with failure to disperse and no underlying crime, and there are 3 or 4 independent eyewitnesses who don't know the police officer and don't know the person who was attacked, you can be pretty sure the independent eyewitnesses are a better litmus test of the truth. That's a second possibility. Third possibility is the other side of the story is so convincing and so important that you realize either A, you have a different story, or you have no story at all. All of those things have happened to me, but usually getting the other side of the story adds nuance. And I think that when you have resources, which is money, expertise, and skill, there are no barriers to doing good work.
The only owner personality we have happens to be Eric Grimes, and I'm wondering, as Sarah was talking about that balance that you have to strike between your passion, for example, and your listeners. How do you keep pushing for your listeners' understanding versus going overboard and pulling them your way? It's like, it used to be said that there was a, a fourth? Sarah, did you want to ask a question?
I'm sitting here. No, I want to hear his answer.
Okay, I've asked the question. Go ahead.
So to me, the truth is uncompromisable, right? It's because I can't lie, so I have to. It's about grades. It's like in martial arts, the principles are the same, white belt through black belt. It's just about what levels that you decide to teach and unveil at that point, because it's based on what you think the student can receive, and a lot of things are like that. But I don't lie. It's like parenting. Like, why tell your children there's a Santa Claus, only to tell them that I've been lying all this time when they turn 7, right? Like, why?
Now, we tell her Kwanzaa.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. But like, why would you? Like, what's the reason for that, right?
Right.
So to me, I'm clear that. Wow, that's a good question, because I struggle with that every day, because people listen to me. Like, people will call me and say, I went to this business because you said you liked it and I hated it. I'm never listening to you again, right? And so it's about mission. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. It's a political battle. Like, I think it's a fight over paradigms. Like earlier, like for me, I think that the fact that America is a democracy is fake news. I think that's fake. I don't think that that's a true statement. I think we have too much history around, if you take what democracy truthfully supposedly means, and you stack it up against the history of America, I think it's like telling us there's a Santa Claus. And so I feel if I'm going to speak the truth, I have to speak into that frame or not speak at all. So there are literally conversations I won't entertain because I know we can't have a truthful dialogue about it. So there are certain areas, as controversial as people say I am, I don't talk about on my show because I refuse to have a conversation that I feel like we are not ready to have, because the paradigms are lies in and of themselves. So even if you have two opposing paradigms, if they're both false, you're talking BS anyway, poppycock or whatever word we're using. And I feel like that's most of the dialogue in America. So,
Most of the dialogue in America is poppycock.
yeah, because the polarities are false in and of themselves. And so you're arguing between, so even if you're in the middle of two falsehoods, it's still false.
I'm going to invite you all, by the way, to at any point you want to ask one another a question, you're free to do that, okay? You two seem to be okay with that already. Superintendent Chitwood, when people think about the police, they think all kinds of stuff, right? They think about police brutality, they think about, I remember officer friendly when I was little growing up. How do you deal with the, let's take these two things. How do you deal with Black Lives Matters, for example, and Police Lives Matters at the same time? When people say Police Lives Matters and Black Lives Matters, what does that mean to you? How do you wrestle with that?
I think it's important first to understand, I've been doing this for 55 years. I just celebrated my 55th year. So I always tell people, I got a PhD in street. I got a PhD in street. So when people try and differentiate between Black Lives Matter and Police Lives Matter, my statement, and I've said it, is all lives matter. All lives matter. I care about the community and I care about the police officers. That's a fine line you have to walk. I don't care what the community, Upper Darby is very, very unique. There's 65 languages representing 72 countries. That may be small. My job and the police officer's job is to create a climate that people can feel comfortable. Now, how do you tell somebody that come from a war-torn country that are now living in Upper Darby, trust us, we're the police? Don't work that way. It don't work that way. So it's a tough, tough road to hoe. Everybody that I've hired in 34 years, everybody that I hire, I give them the following, one-on-one them. Treat everybody the way you want yourself and your family treated. Everybody. I don't care what they do, I don't care where they come from, treat everybody the way you want your family and yourself treated. 98% of the time you're going to win. 98%. 2% of the time you're not going to win. You're not going to win, and that's what you're trained. That's where you're trained, the tactics that you see today. So when you talk about truth between Black Lives Matter and Police Lives Matter, my philosophy is all lives matter.
Ms. Mayfield, when you have to contend with what you view as a considerable amount of lies on the waterfront, with everything that's going on the waterfront and has for so long, where do you turn for support when money seems to be really what's driving what is going on the waterfront? Where do you go? Who do you work with? How do you fight for the truth in this space?
Well, listen, there's nobody more important than me. And some people can turn the other cheek. I've not yet found that phrase to work for me. If you hit me, I'm going to hit you back. You're not going to lie to me and tell me that that's the truth when I am just as learned as you are. This may be your area where you were trained and have experienced that. But if you were educated and trained in this field, and you can't tell me a better lie than what you tell me, you need to find another profession. Okay? There is nobody where I get my strength from and my support is I believe in God, number one. Number two, I have a loving family that means everything in this world to me. That little girl right there means everything to me. Everything. If somebody was to walk up in this building right now and punch her in the face, there's going to be a war. That is how I view this battle that we're in. But now, it's no longer Chester's battle. We ought not have to fight this battle. We've been doing this over 25 years. Over 25 years. And we fought everything nasty, the scourge of the earth. Everything from chemotherapeutic medical waste which included body parts, fetuses, things used to roll down these streets and fall off the trucks, to dirty, contaminated needles that the people who desperately needed jobs were getting stuck by the dirty needles. The same thing is going on now with the city of Philadelphia. Stop lying to people in Philadelphia that you're recycling. Stop it. You're sending tons and tons of garbage down here every single day. How dare you be on TV talking about we can get ready to do 100% recycling. You know what they're doing? They're reforming the word. When does incineration equate to recycling? Stop lying to people. That is the biggest lie ever. The biggest lie. Oh, but we want to keep it going. But tell the people the truth. How they're trying to be so diligent and being good stewards of the earth. Tell the truth of where the crap is going at. And who it's hurting. Yeah. Everybody in Delaware County has a dog in this fight. Because the things that come out of that stack travel for 17 miles. 17 miles. There's nothing in Delaware County and parts of Philadelphia that's immune from what's coming out of that stack. Combined with the refineries and the other things that are in Delaware County, that's the third largest polluter. Third. In a city whose health cannot afford to be poisoned to death. Cannot. Poor access to health care. Low income. But you know what? We have determination.
I just want to echo a point she's making. Well, one of the points that I hear that's real important. People call me a nitpicker, but she made a very important point. You got to, before you engage in any of the debates right now, you got to reinterpret the words, because the words don't mean the same thing anymore. Like, one of the reasons people can lie to you and act like they're not lying is because they're operating from a different definition of common words than we're operating. And so they're changing words right in front of the words don't mean the same thing anymore. Like, they're changing the definition literally of food right now so that they can then usher in genetically modified, hybrid, all of these kinds. So we're arguing about something and we don't even know what we're arguing about because the people with authority have changed the word, and in their mind they're no longer lying. So they doubled down on the dissonance. That's what I call it. And so even in policing the truth, the first thing you have to police is the words that are being used to create a truth, to even determine what we're talking about before we can even debate.
Mr. Marimow, Bill, how has social media changed and challenged the truth?
I think the entire, social media and the web have had great benefits and great drawbacks. One of the great benefits is that all of us, through our computers, through our iPhones and iPads, have access to more information instantaneously than any other generation in the world. That is a huge benefit. If I want to look up Mike Chitwood's deeds and exploits, I can follow all 55 years. Only back to 76, Mike. On the other hand, the demands of the instantaneous news cycle create a pressure to get stories out fast. That, I think, is a burden to all journalists, because the pressure to do things fast also creates superficiality and one-dimensional stories. And when you're writing about a complex, sensitive subject, and the story of what's happening in Chester, I think, is a story that demands attention, you can't do it in a 30-second piece on ABC News. Sometimes I work out early in the morning and I watch TV news. And when I watch TV news, I'm reminded sometimes of a scene in the movie called Blazing Saddles. There's a big posse riding through the town and they're after the baddies, and suddenly the whole town falls down. It's just a facade of the town. And that's what TV news in the morning reminds me of. One fire, one arrest, traffic, weather, and sports. But all in 30 seconds. And Mike,
What channel do you watch?
Mike is often a personality, but it's not his fault.
Every day. Every day.
I'll say, from a police perspective, it's good and it's bad. It creates monsters, but it solves a lot. I mean, I'm shocked at the numbers of crimes. You want somebody for a serious crime, a heinous crime, put them on social media, man, I'm telling you, it's like, boom, wow, they already got the guy's name in there. But then on the other hand, some of what comes out is not true.
I think one of the real, I was the head of news for NPR, and shortly after I left was the shooting at the mall in Arizona where Congresswoman Gabby Giffords was shot. NPR hastily reported that she'd been killed. And I'd gone by then, but if I'd been consulted, I would have said to the national editor, listen, unless you have verified that through 2 or 3 sources, what we can say is there's been a shooting. We know that Congresswoman Giffords was on site. We're going to keep you posted as we learn what's happened, but we don't have the facts right now. And it's very difficult for journalists, especially young journalists, to say we don't know. But I go back, you know, I'm an older guy, not as old as Mike, but I go back to when Walter Cronkite was reporting on the shooting of John F. Kennedy. And throughout the day, he was measured. He said only what he knew and what he didn't know. And I think in the era of the web and this instantaneous news cycle, we have to say what we know. We have to say what we don't know. And that's really important. It's counterintuitive for journalists who want to be authoritative, but it is absolutely essential.
You know, I want to say this, in this era of millennials and Gen X's and Gen Z's and whatever else they are, you know, we're lazy as people. You know, we got smartphones and dumb people. And that combination don't work, okay? No, I'm dead serious. I got a phone. If I need something done, I got to go to my little 8-year-old niece. That's just the reality because I don't have the patience for it. And that's where we fall out. We want an instant answer. We think there's always an answer. And the thing that requires us to do the least amount of work, if you're in a certain age group, that's what you gravitate to. We need to stop being lazy about our information. It's upon us to learn. To learn. My father used to say that every generation's duty is to advance the next one. And if we don't teach our children how to learn, first of all, instead of putting a tablet or computer or phone in their face, say, here, look it up. They're going to seek out whatever's there. The same thing about Black history. It is our duty as a people to teach, to seek that information out and to teach it to our children. Because they get it nowhere else if they don't get it from us. We can't, the expectation is not that the school is going to tell you the truth. When half of the mess in there about history, in my opinion, I got sent home from school one time about Christopher Columbus discovering America. My mouth ain't just start. I've always had. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. If he discovered America, how come the Indians were here? How you discover something that's already there? I think he got lost. That's how he found America. That's still my personal opinion. And they got mad at me because I wouldn't shut up about it. I said, I'm not writing that report. It's wrong. That wasn't my truth. Sent me home from school. My mother had to take me back to school when she was like, just write it. I said, I'm not going to write it, Mom. I'll take that one for the team. I'm not going to do it. So we have to be diligent, and we have a duty to ourselves. There's all kind of foolishness out there. Every single day, be like, whoa, wow, think we out of duty to make sure that crap don't happen? Because if they do, I'm gonna stop eating meat. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not eating that mess. Anytime you can grow an ear on a rat, no, I'm done. I'm done. I'm over that. Trust me. So we have a duty to ourselves to learn the truth. Because people will spoon-feed you. They will change and sanitize things and make them sound so much better. You know, trash the steam sounds really good. The new phrase is trash the energy. Okay? And incidentally, that incinerator, as a byproduct of what they do generate electricity. Instead of it going to the people in the city of Chester free, they ship it over the lines to Atlantic City for a fee. So you see, everybody benefits off of the incinerator here, except for the residents. We still pay a trash bill. The assumption would be is you had the 4th largest incinerator at that time. Now it's the largest in the country. They burn 3,500 tons of trash a day. A day. And the composition of it is changing. Now they're burning more plastics. More plastics are more dangerous to everybody on Earth. Everybody. So the new Green Deal is going to be the battle right here in Chester. It is the battle for southeastern Pennsylvania. It's not ours alone.
I want to ask Sarah. Sarah, can I ask you a question? It's a question regarding race in policing the truth. As the only African American owned radio station in the state.
Talk station.
Talk station, excuse me, thank you. How have you had to fight for what I'll call the black truth in media so that you can get the dollars necessary to do what you need to do?
I mean, it's really just a, when you're black in America, you're used to fighting, for
Air.
yeah, for I mean,
literally. That ain't no lie.
Right, I mean, this
Clean air.
This sister, I mean, she's spelling it out for us. I mean, it's, I think that, Philadelphia is, a major market. It's, I think, the 5th largest media market in the country. And so we're fighting against, Clear Channel or iHeart and Radio 1 and CBS and every major media conglomerate that exists. And most of the media is controlled by about 6 companies. That might have expanded now that we have Facebook and Google and all of those. But the media is controlled by Disney, iHeartMedia, and so if you look at ABC News, it's you see stuff about Disney movies. You see, it's all interconnected because these are multi-billion-dollar conglomerates that are programming our news and information and infotainment for the masses to, for their shareholders and for maximum profit. And so, when you are an individual, an independent, single station in a major market, you have to be, that's targeting the black community. And I have to say, Philadelphia is about 45% black, so there are not a lot of cities in the country that even have a majority black or a very sizable black demographic that would sustain and really support a station like WURD in the country. If you think about gentrification, if you think about how cities are evolving to not be as diverse as they once were, so it's a challenge. But it forces you to be scrappy. It forces you to be creative. And I am fortunate because I am able to draw on a lot of relationships and goodwill that my father, was able to establish in the Philadelphia marketplace because He took care of people as a doctor. He, set up medical facilities in Black communities. So he has like incredible trust and authenticity within the Black community. But he also sat on the orchestra board and, was very involved in the business community in Philadelphia. So people have approached me about buying a station in New York and doing the same thing that we're doing here in Philly. I'm like, I can't do that. I can't do it. I mean, honestly, thank you.
Police the truth. You don't want
Police the truth. I mean, in a way, I do. Like my ego is like, ooh, I would be like, huh?
You want a life though, right?
Exactly. I want a life.
Tell the truth.
And I recognize that I can't replicate, because so much of what I am able to do in Philadelphia is relationship based. I'm able to kind of trade on relationships that are a second generation from what my father was in. And that's what a lot of white people do. Let's just be real. And so that's unique in the Black community, to have like a second bite at the apple where you're not starting from zero. Like this whole, the wealth gap and generational wealth. Let me just be clear, Black wealth and generational wealth is much more fragile than other, than white wealth. But at the same time, the wealth for us, for me, is relationships. It's not necessarily dollars. It's goodwill, it's relationships. And so being able to, what was your question?
I don't know, which one sounds so good.
I'm like, what was that again?
You got it. It's about that money.
What was the question?
How does race impact your ability to sustain what you do?
Okay.
He answered it.
Yeah. So that's it's relationships, and it's relationships across. It's relationships across like race and culture and all of those things, because. The reality is, if we were relying solely on Black businesses to survive, we'd be way dead. Because, no, seriously, because there's...
Is that the truth?
That is the truth. And it's not an indictment on the Black community. It's an indictment on America. Because, I'm just wondering, has anybody seen Boss? This new documentary on WHYY about Black business in America. And every time Black people were starting to move and groove, Tulsa, burn it down, string them up, decimate. So, it's not an indictment of the Black business community. It's an indictment on the wealth inequity that is built into the fabric of this country.
And a traumatization that happens when people like that make it. I'm getting back to the race question. There's a price you pay to be successful in America if you're a Black man or a Black woman. People get killed when they win. And that sends a signal to people, oh, I don't want to do that. Who wants to be...
Or they go to prison.
Right. Who really wants to be Marcus Garvey after you see what happens to Marcus Garvey? When you do your research, you realize that Booker T. Washington was poisoned. He didn't just die. Malcolm X got shot 12 times in front of his children. This sister sitting here worried about cursing in front of a child. You imagine a man just speaking for protection in front of his wife and children and 200 people. Martin Luther King, talking about peace, got shot in his neck. So there's a price you pay for winning that is all about race, that makes the conversation about wealth very different.
I gotta tell you this, Brother Shomari. I'm not an activist, I'm a resident. And I'm just who I am. I'm a person who loves my family. They come first. My community is second. And that's my org, okay? However, race always plays a part. I had an office in this city real close to the incinerator, 3 blocks away. We fought real hard to open up that office because we wanted the community to have a place where they could come and get information. Clean information, and not word of mouth, and not rely on the politicians that you can buy for $2 in Chester. Okay? Yeah, I'm gonna call them as I see it.
That's right, call it that.
Truth. That's what they are. You can't give me money to hurt my mother. Okay, well we had an office in the city, in my city, where I played in the dirt, and people broke into our office, wrote KKK all over the walls in my office in the city of Chester. They set my house on fire. They put a device at the front of the door and a device at the back of the door and lit them up. So there's always going to be a price to pay when you speak the truth. And you cannot be compromised. They came in my office and put an envelope on my desk, slid it across. I said, you can take that itch right back where you got it from, because you can't put a dollar sign on my mother. My mother lives here. So, I do believe that either we're really stupid in some aspects, really mean, because my anger is fueled by my activism. That's the catalyst for me. All I gotta do is come in here and I'm pissed off and we won't go to work. So angry women is a good thing if you channel it in the right way. I make no apologies about being angry. We've had people, I've gone into many different communities. Many different communities. Sometimes the audience wasn't nobody there but me. Okay? However, they were warming, they were supportive, and they helped us. They taught us. But at the same time, I've had that same audience say, well, you know, Zulene, if you would just stop saying environmental racism, you would have more help. I'm going to call it as I see it. It's not what you define it as. It's what it is. Oh, you can say environmental injustice? No, I'm going to call it as what I see it is. Now, if you're uncomfortable with that, just imagine what we're going through. Period. So you don't do some things for money, but race is always a factor. And race is what got the incinerator here. And not only here, they're all, where you want to know where they are, going to any black community.
Where we are.
Okay? That's not coincidental. We're targeted. We got targets on our backs in our communities. And many times, it can be an upper middle class black community. Same statistics. Very same statistics.
I'm going to go out here and get some questions from the audience. We got one over here.
Yeah, thanks to the panel and everyone. Something that goes toward education about, just dealing with this, who do you believe? A bumper sticker that I saw a couple years ago that I've always loved is critical thinking, the other national deficit. And also, if you wanted to react to it at all, somebody in the current administration got a lot of flack for saying something about alternate facts. And it is kind of funny in a way, but I got to thinking about, just the truth in general sometimes is a little challenging. And I just thinking in terms of like a soup can, for instance. Well, what shape is the soup can? Well, you look at it from the side, it's kind of rectangular. That's the shadow that it would cast, if you put it that way. But if you flip it around, look at the end, it's round. So, they're both true. Is it rectangular or is it round? They're both true. And that's just a real simple example of sometimes how tricky things can be, ascertaining. And in a way, I think maybe the question is, well, you're asking the wrong questions. The shape of the can is maybe not important. What's in it may be important. But there's some way of, sidestepping that kind of conflict about two different truths.
I wonder, if I may, there was a time where we would say that writers, journalists would write to a 4th grade reading level, right? So we would write because most Americans read at that level. And to his point around the national deficit, critical thinking, Bill, to what extent do you think that the media perpetuates ignorance? Not just the social media, but the mainstream media. To what extent do we perpetuate ignorance? I see Shomari has to deal with not pushing too much. To what extent do we not push enough when it comes to educating?
So what I think, and it's a good question that you asked. One of the antidotes that I had omitted from speaking so we could have more of a discussion was my mantra nowadays to detect, dissect, and debunk fake news. Read broadly, read deeply, read skeptically. So to translate that into concrete terms, if you read an editorial in the Inquirer, which tends to be liberal, or the New York Times, try reading an editorial on the same subject from the Wall Street Journal. It may not change your mind, but it'll give you a much more educated, much more three-dimensional view of the issue. If you wake up in the morning and you're watching CNN or MSNBC, turn over to Fox. If you're liberal, it may be repelling. Watch it and analyze it and ask yourself, is there anything here, anything at all that appeals to me, or is it instantly debunkable? But read broadly, read deeply, teach your children and your grandchildren to think analytically, to dissect the facts, to look at things from both sides. And I think for those people who read only what they believe, so people who are extremely liberal and read only what they believe, they're hurting themselves, but just as much as the conservative person who only follows conservative news outlets. I think it's really important to look at the two poles of the possible truth, and then use your own analytical abilities, be open-minded, and figure out what is your opinion about this issue. And on issues, there isn't a truth. There's, in a marketplace of idea, which is the best idea that appeals to you.
I see you wanted to say something. We have another question out here. I'm going to go back there for a minute. Nolan, let me hear from Shomari. Go ahead.
It's a question, because I was going to ask. It's education around here. It's Swarthmore. Let me just say what I mean. I'm not sure that the issue is just about the truth. I actually think that there's an intentionality around us being inundated with information, period. And research shows that when people are inundated with information, whether it's true or not, it tends to do two things. Either paralyze you and you don't make a decision, or you make bad decisions because you revert back to your comfort zone automatically. So I think that in many ways, one of the destabilizing factors has been just keep hitting them with information, quote unquote. True or not. Always something to fish through, because now you have to research before you can respond, because there's always something. It's almost like you have a court case, and you ever see the court case where the strategy is, I'm going to take this one-person law firm, because they only have one person, and we have a team of 20 lawyers, and I'm going to just give them all the information about this case they could ever want. I'm going to overwhelm them with mountains of evidence that they now have to plow through, and because they don't have the capacity to process it, they can't really put forward a good defense. And I think that that's what's happening to us in the name of democracy. You say, okay, we are informed at a level that we don't have the capacity to process to make strategic, wise decisions. And I don't think that that's unintentional, by the way. And I think that that's something we have to begin to consider, is how addicted to information we become, and how that addiction has paralyzed us from wise actions.
Well, I can tell you this. I think that,
Just give me 1 minute. I want to go ahead and Nolan. You'll be able to remember that thought, I hope? Nolan, go ahead. Ask the question.
Hi, Nolan Fontaine here. the question I had, it kind of dovetails to what you were saying, Brother Shomari, and what you were also speaking about, Ms. Zulene. So when I think about the media, I'm reminded by Sinclair Networks and the big expose of multiple news networks being governed under this same kind of like umbrella and ideology. And I'm also reminded by Julian Assange, who was recently jailed, but who's not a U.S. citizen, and who's facing extradition, I believe. So it brings me to this question of the lawsuit, Juliana v. United States, which is a class action lawsuit of children who are taking the United States government to court because of environmental racism and degradation. So what I'm wondering is do you see that, or does the panel, anybody see that as a way, really kind of dovetailing what you said, Ms. Zulene, as kind of using that as a platform to voice our truth here in the city? And could that also be used as precedent here in Chester for us to also take the state?
We've done that.
Done that?
We've done it. Chester residents versus site. Okay? We've had a court case that was snatched out of the lower courts by the Supreme Court of the United States. We sued the Department of Environmental Protection. There is no one magic bullet for this battle. It's going to take a lot of wheels and a lot of components. And just like a rainbow, it's going to take a rainbow of communities to come together and to fight this battle collectively, because we're fighting capitalism. They don't give a rat's behind. The science is there. The science, anytime you pump an arsenic into a community, nobody has to be a rocket scientist to know what arsenic does. When you didn't know nothing, you knew arsenic was a poison. So there's no one magic bullet. It's a lot of different strategies, and now I'm of the opinion we've done all of that. We've had collective groups. We had a group that's being reformed called C4, Campus Coalition Concerning Chester. 17 different college campuses in 6 states. Their mission was to do nothing but assist Chester residents concerned with quality living with anything. That was their mission statement. And that's what they did. We've held protests, places where Chester residents couldn't even get. They've gone around the whole state, wherever Mr. Syke, the head of the Department of Environmental Protection, was going to be at. You had proxies for Chester, standing in the audience with signs, what about Chester?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
How do people support what you're trying to do?
Number one, we need to stop the flow of trash of the recyclables coming from the city of brotherly love. That's our number one battle. That's the biggest thing on that's the biggest target I got right now. Philadelphia and Ocean City, Maryland. Ocean City gonna be easy because we're gonna call for boycott.
What do you want? How can people support you?
They can join Chester residents and help us, especially if they're in the city of Philadelphia. We're gonna attend council meetings. We're gonna be at political forums. We're gonna pose the question. You got a major election coming up, and these people are not gonna hide behind, oh, but that's not our community. Oh, it is your community. It is your community when you think you can pollute us. That's what
I don't know if you've been on word, but we definitely love to.
I'm coming. I'll be there.
We got a question here, Titus.
My question is for Superintendent Mr. Chitwood. So in Upper Darby, I'm not sure exactly your guys' population, but your guys' murder rate is much different than what the murder rate is here in Chester.
Yeah.
Now,
last year we had 3 or 4 population of 100,000 people.
And now Chester's probably maybe 35,000 people at the most? 33,000 people. So how are you able to police your neighborhood and allow it to have such little murders? And in a city like here, where we have a much more profound number of murders in this community, but not the same amount of residents that live in the community. And I know you guys have a much more diverse amount of people that live in Upper Darby than opposed to what we have here. So how are you able to actually police your police officers along with your community to allow the ability for you to keep that rate or the murder rate so low?
First off, I can't, and I won't be critical of Chester.
I will.
And I got that. And I agree with you, by the way. But I can't because I don't know anything about it.
Right.
What we do is, I make sure that every shift has a number of officers that I feel comfortable with. Now, to get public safety, you got to pay for it. You got to pay for it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, God forbid somebody gets shot. We're very, very close. I don't know what hospital Chester uses. I guess Chester Crozier. But Penn, Lankenau, I mean, I got to tell you, if you're breathing, they're going to bring you back. So I think manpower. I think the manpower goes into the investigations of any particular crime. I like to consider myself somebody that can go out in any neighborhood and be treated with respect because I show everybody the same thing. Did I learn that out of a nutshell? No, it took a long time. I told you, 55 years of doing what I've been doing. So I grew, I learned, and I realized that everybody wants and everybody deserves a quality of life. I don't care who you are, I don't care where you're from. And that's what I promote. That's what I promote. And then that filters down to the men and women in the police department. So that's where we are right now. Now, do I like to stay up and say, yeah, we only had 2 murders last year. Christ, this year we could have 12. And then I'll look like a goofball. So, you know, there's some of the things that we do. But my thing is always, you got to pay for public safety.
Yeah.
If you want to make sure things are safe, you got to pay for it.
Is that a question back there? Yes.
Me?
Yes.
Well, thank you for being here. I came here originally because I wanted to, I'm paralyzed, I was paralyzed, in 2008, and I grew up in media. I'm here because I'm looking for networking in the community to, I guess, get power to speak for my platform, which is the disabled community, a word that I really don't even like anymore. Your anger, I can feel. I have a load of questions, and the 2 of you ladies, I mean, I really respect and look up to because I want to be things that you are. Like I want to speak with people that inspire me, and not for people, but give other people a chance. And it's hard to do because, I mean, as a female, I kind of get, you know, shunned, just like patted on the back. Okay, we can, you know, as a patient from doctors, which we are all lied to, like you say, and I yeah, that brings me being very angry, and that makes me want to speak. So the 3 of you I can really look up to. This is kind of doing what I can to, like, I'm trying to learn, because the more I learn politically, I get very angry, because like I do feel like we're being lied to. The police, I mean, the drug situation, that there was, you know, we finally arrested the people that we should be arresting, not the people that are in jail for the little crimes. Friends that I have that have kids that don't really have chances. I'm growing up around here. I was very ignorant to the environmental stuff going on. As for media, I live in Ridley Park. My family grew up around here. My family grew up in Chester. Like, what can we do? What can I do as another resident of Delaware County? Because I am within 17 miles on both ends, and all my family are. My nephews and my niece have respiratory issues that are hospitalized. And I didn't realize. So whatever I can do on that end, but also any advice that you can give me to be able to speak up, or any resources, because...
Well, you know, you've already reached the biggest hurdle.
There's so much more. I mean, there's a big bill going on right now that I can't even...
Most people, it's in you and it's there. And one thing I'm going to tell you is be fearless. A no is never a no until you decide that it's a no. Okay? It's never no. And if it's never good enough for you, it's never good enough. You hold people accountable. My young brother, the key is accountability. The difference between Chester and Upper Darby is that they actually solve murders. Okay? That's why they stop. You can murder people in this city. I ain't seen them bring very, very few people into custody. Okay? Because we're not holding them accountable. We have a police chief. And it is what you pay for. But I'm going to tell you this little tidbit. The average officer in the city of Chester earns in excess of $80,000 a year. The average is $120,000 a year. That's why they come in here.
But where is all this money?
Hold up, wait a minute.
That's why the city is growing.
I want to get to a couple more questions. We're running out of time, and I'm sure Zulene will make herself available to you, okay? We got any other questions around here?
Can I just say one thing to
Yes, go ahead.
Sister
Samantha, sorry.
Samantha, I say, I applaud you for coming and seeking out, inspiration, guidance, whatever. But also, I just want to say, there is a lot of anger that fuels kind of activism, but you also have to make sure you're taking care of yourself. Amidst all of the struggle and strife and passion to try and get things done, or you have to do that, but you also have to make sure that you have balance and that you exercise self-care, and that this does not, the anger and the passion doesn't burn you up and out. So that's all I would say.
I appreciate that. The one thing I was affiliated with martial arts. It kind of gave me my fight back. The MMA trainers I have around me, that community is great. I always wanted to, bring boxing into this city because I think it's really important. I'm actually leaving for Canada on Monday, represented by the Boxing Council to get boxing into the Paralympics. So that is hugely, that self-care, that is something I've had to work on before, so that's why I'm here now, because I'm trying, so I appreciate it.
I saw another hand. Yes, right here, Connie.
My question is, the question is to you, and I didn't get a clear understanding of your answer to Sarah's question about how we can support your cause. I heard you speak about an office that you used to have in Chester where people could get information. And so my question is, where can we get that information now? And again, being specific, how can we support your cause? Because I do go to the city council meetings, and when I go, it's a handful of Chester residents there.
Well, they hold them 10 o'clock in the morning. We're in a survival state all the time. Absolutely.
So I go to the evening ones, which I'm going to request that they have more often. It's 4 per year.
Oh, it'll move on up. You can go to Chester Residents, Google Chester Residents, you'll be able to pull us up. You can go to energyjustice.org. There's a link on that page that will take you to us. I have a direct number. Anybody can call me. It's 302-397-1804.
Say that again, please.
302-397-1804. Now, in the interim, you can call county council if you live in Delaware County and ask them a simple question. Where's my recyclables going at? And what are you doing as council to stop the trashing of Delaware County? If you live in the city of Chester, even though it may be futile and you may not get an answer, but sometimes just asking the question triggers something. Don't stop. Don't stop. You know how our council plays. I can go up there and just stand up at the mic and they're going to bang the gavel, shut down, everybody walking out. So what I do is line up 15 people behind me, let them go first, asking the questions, because when I get there, it's shut down. It's all over. but we still have the obligation to hold people who are in charge of different aspects of our lives accountable. Accountable. We fade into black and think that there's nothing we can do. That's a lie. The same, you gotta be like the little Energizer buddy. All right, I know you told me this yesterday, but tell me again, because I'm not understanding why you're doing this. I'll give you an example. The incinerator is the largest incinerator that this company operates. All the other ones burn about 1,000 tons a day. This one is 3,500 tons a day. When every other incinerator that they have 4 or 5 pollution control devices. Some of them will stop some of the particulate matter that's coming out and stopping some of the other pollutants. The largest one here only has 2 pollution control devices because they don't feel as though it's fiscally feasible. So we don't matter enough in their minds or their business model. But the one thing that I tell communities when I go out, this is not Wakanda. Ain't no magic force field over the top of the city of Chester hold all nasties in. They go up, and because it's heated, go up, out, and over. A lot of Chester.
Does everybody know what Wakanda is? Yeah, I think you lost me with that, man.
I'm sorry. Well, it's this movie like it was Star Trek. But it had a magic force field. Shield. Okay, kept the things out and then.
I figured about me, that's my job is to make sure everybody knows what Wakanda is. All right, so we're going to start wrapping this up. I want to go across and see if we get some final comments. I want to start over here with you, Bill.
I think, first of all, thanks everyone for being here. For me, I've learned more by listening than I think I imparted. And hearing about the situation in Chester with the alleged energy or trash steam, that requires coverage. The news media hasn't been doing a good enough job. But I think it's been a great discussion, and I applaud the work everyone's doing, and keep on keeping on.
We have no choice.
Well, first, I want to follow up on what Bill just said. I'm amazed at this trash to steam issue. I never knew anything about it.
It's an incinerator.
Well,
regardless. Call it what it is.
The issue, I don't know anything about it. I don't know what to call it.
They burn.
I'm amazed at that. And
they burn.
I would sit amongst this community here. There's a lot of people here. Maybe everybody should reach out to the issue and fight the issue.
I agree.
And you know what? You can count on me to fight that issue. The second thing is the intellectual expertise shared by the 2 ladies and the gentleman blew me away. I mean, the conversation was stuff that I don't hear. So from my perspective, my perspective is it was a great learning experience for me.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that you guys assembled a really fascinating panel. No, seriously, I mean, very diverse perspectives. A police chief, an editor of a major newspaper, an environmental racism activist, Brother Shomari. So, but what I would say in closing is, when we talk about this question of truth, I think the biggest lie that infects and affects America is about racism and about the history of this country. And I think that until, and you mentioned, until there is a honest reckoning of the absolute devastation that was brought on Black people and people, like we can talk about Black, Native, but Black people, I'm talking about Black people. that was the economic engine for the prosperity of this nation, until there's like a real, like detailed kind of reckoning of the truth of that reality of this country that goes back 400 years, and maybe beyond that, I think that we're never going to have a solid foundation from which to create real democracy, real justice, real equality. It's never going to happen.
Thank you.
Final word. I got a lot of things going on in my brain. But all the time. So that's how you got it. When you're in survival mode, that's what happens. And I think that, you know, it's hard to impress on people who have not been threatened with survival. But when you're in survival mode, you have a BS detector that's automatic. And you've acquired that talent because you had to for your survival. So for other people who don't have that mechanism, it's very difficult for you to understand what a community goes through, for you to understand how pressurized some things are when you have not been put in that survivalistic mode. So it's very difficult for you to understand. The same thing when I talk to students and we talk about race issues and racism, because I've heard it all 1,000 times. Are you sure it's just not classism? Are you sure it's just not happening because you're poor? You know, you don't have to defend your position. But policing the truth means that the facts don't never change. The facts don't change. What we're doing in this country is normalizing lying. The facts are the facts, and the facts always remain the same. Now, we can debate many things, this is what Reverend Al said, but we can't debate the facts. They are what they are. The facts are that communities of color, black communities, get these type of industries at a far more greater rate than any other group. The truth is that collectively together, it's going to take all of us for our survival on this planet to come and fight these things. Because it affects every last one of us. Chester is getting the brunt of the battle. We're frontline. But don't think for a minute that everybody in this room is not affected severely. That's the truth. And last final words, for me, many different things go on, different views, but the facts are always constant. And when we start playing with the facts, then we really have lost ourselves as a people and a country. There you go.
I mean, my two words would be facts and feelings. You know, my work is around behavior change. How do you get people to change their minds about what they think in order to do things differently? Whether you're an ex-offender, a hustler, a murderer, whatever. And so, for me, truth is, a person's truth is when the facts and their feelings are in alignment. Because the reality is that facts don't change people's behaviors. You know, one of the things we have in the black community, that's the facts, that's the fact. Facts don't matter to people. If you believe something, if you can't get a person to feel your facts, they're not going to move. And so my thing is in the spirit of regionalism, which is how do we, you know, we tend to localize everything we're going through. But we have a regional crisis in this area as well, but we also have some regional opportunities. So how do you get people to reach past their feelings where I hear your facts, but they don't bother me, they don't move me? There are literally people in this room, I can tell sometimes when it's like, okay, I can see people engage and disengage depending on who's speaking. Because it's about how you feel about what's being said or who's saying. And I'm saying until the facts and the feelings connect, that's where you find truth, and that's then when you find your desire to behave and do differently. So what's it going to take for me? I'm looking at a room. I didn't expect it to be mostly white, but it was mostly white last week as well. So I'm very in tune about the fact that unless we can find an empathy connection, it's going to be very difficult for us to move on any of these things. And so my thing is, let's find out. We ain't going to agree on everything. I'm letting y'all know that now. I'm looking at y'all. Y'all ain't going to agree with me. We ain't going to agree with y'all on everything. But we need to find 3 regional things that we can cross-fertilize and reach for each other on. Understanding that on the basis of what the facts are, work towards the fact that we can feel one another so that we can make change around these significant things, because we're all going to pay the price or reap the rewards thereof.
That being said, we did pass out, everybody got an evaluation, I hope. I hope you'll take the time to fill out the evaluation. Filling out these evaluations is an opportunity to see how well and unwell we have done. Gives us an opportunity to move forward and get better at what we're doing. We really appreciate you being here. One more time for our panel. Thank you all so much for being here, and hopefully you are on our mailing list as well. If you're not on our mailing list, please sign the book back there so we can keep you up to date on the next things that we're doing. Thank you so much.
Give a hand for Butch Slaughter.
Thank you, everyone.